Hello and welcome to the show. You join me at the top of Mount Chiliad for some more downhill chaos. The first vehicle to go today is the new Windsor drop. I was trying to get it to spit fire. Unfortunately, there were to be no flames from the Windsor, although there were to be a couple of splattered hikers just as I'd committed to launching. They're climbing up there. I think I've found more and more hikers at the start of these runs each week. They're just more and more determined to get into a camera shot. Anyway, the Windsor, yes, we have had the standard, the normal version of the Windsor go down here before, and it didn't fare particularly well. I was worried we were going to see a repeat, if you like, with this particular vehicle on this opening run. I just braked a little bit too late, and that was one of the big things with this car, getting the braking right. When it goes wrong, yeah, it tended to go really wrong. It's a relatively powerful car, relatively fast accelerating vehicle, this one. The Brickade just managing to outrun my rolling vehicle here. Getting the car slowed down, especially for the corner you just saw me roll off of there. Getting it slowed down for these turns was a bit of a pain. It was a bit tough, and the length of the car certainly didn't help matters either. Admittedly, this time I was well too late, under braking, going for a huge tumble. The car teetering on the edge. I almost save it, not quite, as we do fall down the other side, although at such slow speeds now rolling down the hill. The Windsor is good enough to get it back under control, and we have seen some cars, even if you go over the edge at that kind of speed, not be able to bring it back under control. I'm not quite sure. I think that might have been the offender go shooting past the car while I was clinging onto the side of the mountain. An unusual roll would befall me next time. I don't think I've ever rolled a car in that. I just also saw a coyote doing a cannonball in the top left corner. The wildlife are going berserk today. Turn one, that can often be a problem for the cars that have difficulties braking, and sure enough, I was a little too late on them, ran wide across the rock face, couldn't get the car turned enough, went for a couple of rolls, but once more the Windsor was capable of slowing down. We would get towards the very high-speed change of direction, trying to carry as much speed as I could through there, just a little too much. The back end let go at just that crucial moment. I went to counter it. I stopped the car from oversteering, but in doing so, ended up clipping the inside mound, and that sent the Windsor for a pretty sizable roll. And when this car does roll, it is a really rather spectacular sight. Almost identical thing next time out, slightly better positioned. I don't quite know what I hit to cause me to roll in the manner that I did. It was a very vicious roll, that one. I was quite impressed with it, gotta say. I was very impressed with that one, but yeah, small misjudgments with this car would cause some pretty spectacular accidents. It did take a little bit of time to get the hang of this vehicle. It wasn't as bad, though. It didn't feel as tough to drive down here as the first Windsor was going down this course. It actually dealt with the bumps really rather well. You know, for it being a large, luxurious car, not really designed for, well, rally racing, and rather extreme rally racing at that. This is not a nice route for cars. The Windsor didn't have any massive problems on the bumps. The big problems were me trying to get the hang of the brakes. As I said, you know, this is a really rather long car to go through this course, and the likes of the hairpin never really held any fear for it. I could yank the handbrake, I could get it turned, I could throw it through most of the corners without a huge amount of issues, and the acceleration was pretty damn impressive. I get very lucky on the landing there. That's about the only time that it was from the landing that the car bounced up and being any little bit uncontrollable. But even then, you know, I still made it around the turn. This jump, no problem. I actually landed that one a little bit awkwardly. A lot of cars, if I'd landed at that point on the road, they would have bounced up and gone careering off the course, but not a problem for the Windsor. Again, carrying decent speed across that particular jump as well. Now, I learned my lesson from the previous attempts. You'd have to slow down a little bit more. This time, not losing the back end either did help a lot as we come around the second to last corner. It is very bumpy around this section. Again, though, no problem for the Windsor as we around the final turn. Is flying towards the line as we kind of leave the ramp. For whatever reason, the nose of the car just gets shot up into the air, and the Windsor has completed the course. Again, the damage being done with that rather spectacular flight across the finish line there. also struggling to get the car turned around. You really do get a sense of just how long this car is when trying to do a three-point turn on this part of the course. Very, very nearly got it wrong with the car falling down the side there, but did make it back around. Up next, we've got the new SUV, the XLS. I've gone for the armoured version, seeing as it is there. Thought I'd have a go with this particular one. This, I was surprised to see spitting, well, much fire out of the back of the car. Once more, hikers were being a pain, and both of them are going to get splattered. They're not going to win an argument against a car like this one. Now, the SUVs and kind of like the proper off-road vehicles, the Brawler, the Insurgent and so on, have tended to go really rather fast down here, often beating supercars and sports cars and so on, because they can carry speed across the bumps in the way that the supers and the sports simply can't. And I was wondering if the XLS could do a similar thing. On this opening run, I pushed my luck a little too hard. I ran wide, and lifting the back of the car up into the air is not particularly good for control, ending up going flying off the mountain. Quite spectacular style off the mountain as well. Another interesting characteristic of this car, surprisingly oversteery. With all of the vehicles, most vehicles on GTA are very, very planted, but this one, the back end could let go at times when you were least expecting it. Once more, this jump was causing a few problems on the landing of the jump, trying to get the car slowed down for the next corner, and yeah, that one did not quite work. It did, fortunately, bounce quite kindly, and I managed to get the car under control before it started tumbling too long. But yeah, definitely this was a real problem area. Even when I thought I'd managed to get away with it, just the back end let go once again at that critical moment. I was pushing my luck, certainly. You could see by the skid marks there. I was pushing my luck, but the back end would let go when pushed really rather hard, splattering into a hiker, and immediately karma would get me. The landing of that jump, now we've seen it cause many a problem for sports cars. It was a little bit of a problem for this XLS. I'm not quite sure why. It just didn't like the corner that followed. So the landing of the jump was okay, but trying to get it around this corner, it didn't quite have the grip I was expecting from the car. Trying to carry that bit more speed, sort of slingshot my way around the turn, ended up out too wide. Got caught by a bush and rolled in that particular attempt. Again, getting the car slowed down and being stuck a little too far to the right would not be good for the SUV. Big tumble down the side of the mountain, and this time no chance to get the car under control, as we've lost almost all of the body panels that can fall off. One door was clinging on for dear life, that's gone. The boot opens, doesn't quite fall off though, as it does eventually come to a stop in a rather narrow gullyway there. It took a little bit of time to get the hang of driving this vehicle. I actually very rarely do you keep the car under control having run wide through turn one. We saw what happened to the Windsor when I ended up out across that rock. It is not a good place to be. I could, though, manage to get this vehicle back under control. Has a relatively impressive turn of acceleration, up to 70 miles an hour down that straight, and while we have seen the Formula 1 cars hitting 90 miles an hour, 70 is still pretty damn good going for, well, just about anything, and it was a nice car through the corners as well. Once you'd got the hang, again, of the braking, they weren't as powerful as I have been used to with some of the crazy sports cars and race cars and whatnot that I have driven down chiliad, but that's, to be expected. It was, I think, better under, or felt much better under brakes than the Windsor. Felt more composed through some corners, although the back end letting go was less than ideal. That actually worked out pretty well for me. The way the car ended up twisting in the air helped it launch through the next corner. The landing of, that's probably the highest speed jump we take, was no problem for this car. The bushes also held no fear, which is nice to be able to chuck the vehicle through that section of track as we round the second to last corner. Gets a little bit of oversteer across that first big bump and then flat out towards the line. It is a little bit more controlled across there than we had with the Windsor, unfortunately just clipping a tree, unable to really straighten the car up at that point. Yeah, once it's in the air, there's not a huge amount that I can do, especially not with the time that I have across that jump. Yeah, a relatively impressive vehicle to drive this one. Finally, I knew this one was going to be a challenge and people were going to want to see me try and take the Brickade down Mount Chiliad. This is a giant truck. A rather impressive performance-wise truck, no doubt. It has got pretty damn good acceleration and brakes that are, well, up there with a lot of the sort of normal road cars. For the size of vehicle this is, yeah, it's phenomenal under braking. But there are some problems when it comes to off-roading. Most notably is, well, the truck is almost wider than the road at various points early on. That does make it rather difficult to navigate it through this incredibly bumpy section of road, and things went a little bit wrong as I was trying to get it turned. Misjudged all of the turning through there. I mean, the truck was still going, so it kept up towards the next corner, but trying to get the turning right is no easy feat with this, and we promptly managed to roll it over at the next corner. The bigger problem, though, was yet to come, as well. We have got that hairpin to worry about, although I did have to first of all get to the hairpin again, and that was quite difficult with this vehicle. It really did not like this initial section. As I said, the truck very much as wide as the road, and if you just stepped a centimetre or two over the edge of the road, the wheels kind of got a little bit caught, the truck started handling very, very peculiarly, and things went wrong like this. It's bouncing down, bounced a long way down the mountain on the back before it did eventually go up in flames. I think that certainly these opening couple of bits of the run were some of the toughest. It's just too narrow for a truck like this, and trying to get it slowed down. The brakes are good, but it was still easy to misjudge it. We scrape along one side before bouncing back and coming to a rest on the other side, and that was really the fate that you were constantly fighting through this opening section. You just couldn't take any speed, because when you did, you got bounced around no end and often falling off the course. Then came the big challenge. Having survived that first run, it was to try and tackle the hairpin. The Brickade almost got it around on the first, well, I say almost. We are now slightly plummeting off the course. The brakes did a very, very good job of holding an incredibly large truck at a very, very steep angle without, most of the vehicles that this size you do that with, they are going plummeting down towards the lumber mill, and there is nothing you can do about it. The Bricade's brakes were incredibly impressive, more just bouncing around. I can't get the vehicle back under control again, having run a touch wide. It'll just sort of, it almost feels like the weight is moving about so much from side to side, and whatever I do with the steering, I just couldn't do enough to stop the vehicle from having problems. I was still, though, pondering about how to get around the hairpin, so despite this attempt going completely wrong at the corner before, I wanted to have another try, and I came up with an idea that could just about work. It didn't quite on this first one, a big two-wheeled moment eventually rolling over, but I was essentially going to have to use the rock to turn the truck, because the actual steering lock isn't going to be enough. I can't handbrake it around the corner. I don't have enough space to swing out. I tried my best to get away without using the rock, but it wasn't going to work. It simply doesn't turn well enough, and the vehicle is too long to make it work. So I was going to have to use the rock to basically lift up the rear of the truck and try and use that to pivot the vehicle around on. A slightly odd technique, but it was going to be the way that things were going to have to be done. I did make it through sheer luck at one point, through the hairpin, and then immediately threw it away at the next corner. Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about the length of the vehicle. I kind of just threw it through that section as I would normally, and we got a little bit in trouble that time out. Boulders getting in the way, and there is this thing, like sudden burst of acceleration from this vehicle. It looks like it suddenly finds a gear that it can really, really shift in. And I was suddenly going like 60 miles an hour at a point I really didn't want to. Flew myself off the mountain, but again, impressive control from the Brickade. I've sent Hummers off this part of the course, and the Hummers haven't been able to stop yet. The giant Brickade would get slowed down. That is a hell of a job that it survived down. Certainly did take a little bit of time with this vehicle. Trying to figure out how to get this around parts of the course were not easy, but it could do it. This first section was really not fun. You can see the way it's crashing around. The large overhang, certainly the large overhang at the rear doesn't help. The front's got a relatively large overhang as well. Just bounces around, crashing off the floor. It gets up to almost 60 miles an hour down this straight. For this type of vehicle, that is incredibly impressive. A bit of a handful through these next corners. It's just This course is tight and twisty and nasty for normal or for off-road racing vehicles even, let alone for a giant truck such as this one. Now comes the big challenging section, going for the hairpin. Get it to lift up the rear wheels. You really have to tip the vehicle over onto its side, and then when it's on its side you can use the steering to get it to turn around that corner. It works. It's perhaps not the most elegant of solutions, but it is about the only way you're going to get this vehicle to turn at the hairpin, and, well, it made it around the corner, so I will take it. Now, these next sections, well, you know, in a normal car, they're okay corners, but in this, once more, you're having to be very, very careful. You're going to be very, very careful because the truck is pretty much the width of the road through a lot of it. It does not have any margin for error, and it is very easy to roll over. The Brickade does not take very much encouragement for it to roll onto its side, and I really didn't want to be doing that. I get things massively wrong coming across this final jump. Just keep my foot down as it bounces from side to side, and somehow, through all of it, the truck ends up pointing the direction that I want it to go. I'm not... Again, I would love to say that was my driving skill. There was a little bit of it involved. Mostly luck, though, as it bounced from side to side and just happened to point the way that I wanted it to go. As we head around the final corner, it maintains about a similar speed as the Windsor and the XLS through that final corner. You know, around the high 50 miles an hour, but yeah, did get a little bit of understeer on the run off it, and it ended up a bit wide across the finish line. The truck's on its side as it tumbles down and splatters a very unfortunate bystander. Yeah, sorry to the guys out there. I had no real control. The truck was sliding down the mountain on its side. Couldn't really have been positioned worse for that, but it made it just about to the bottom of chiliad. I love how one of them wasn't really, it's just sort of ambling away until I started moving, and they freaked out and run through the tunnel and decided to, we got rid of the evidence. The surfer is now hidden in, I think it's in a ditch somewhere. Who knows? It was never seen again. Anyway, it is on to the times, and it was a mighty, mighty impressive time from the XLS. It goes into 41st place, same time as the Sultan RS, the Lotus Exige V6. It beats the mighty Peugeot 508. That thing was still mighty quick. Ridiculous time from that car. Beats the rough CTI Yellowbird. It's only a tenth of a second down on the Osiris. When I was driving it, I really didn't expect it to go quite that fast. I mean, it felt pretty decent, but that is a really very, very quick time for the SUV. The Windsor drop goes into a 78th place. Not a bad time, actually, from that 128.3. It beats the Supra Mark III. It does beat the Banshee 900R. I think I did run the Banshee, though, before I had a patch to fix the top speed. But still, the Banshee had incredible handling. Beats the Monaro, Camaro SS. Does lose out slightly to the Gran Turismo, the Vauxhall Insignia, the Ultimate Aero, etc. But much improved from the Windsor drop. And the Brickade, well, it is down towards the bottom, but it isn't last. It goes into 152nd place, beating the Schwarzer and Stratum drift cars. It beats the Volvo truck and the PLP50 for going down chiliad, although it does lose out to the RX-7 drift car, the Hoonicorn, the Ford Model T, and the Hummer H6. Yeah, lots of time is lost trying to navigate some narrow sections with the Brickade, but probably the most impressive thing about that is simply it making it down the course, because, yeah, that is a really rather ridiculous vehicle to be driving down chiliad. However, that is it for this video, guys. As ever, I will link all of the mods that I've used in the description so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. But that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.